There is outrage as Hugh Edwards escaped a custodial sentence for child sex offences. In a shocking turn of events that has sent ripples through British society, former BBC newsreader Hugh Edwards narrowly avoided a custodial sentence on Monday after admitting to accessing indecent material of children. The 63-year-old broadcaster, once a familiar and trusted face on television across the nation, was handed a 6-month suspended jail term, prompting widespread criticism and claims of a deeply flawed justice system. The case has ignited a fierce debate about the apparent disparity in sentencing between offences involving child exploitation and those related to controversial social media posts. Critics argue that this verdict sends a troubling message about the perceived gravity of crimes against children in comparison to online misdemeanours. Edward pleaded guilty to 3 counts of making indecent images of children, a charge that typically carries the potential for immediate imprisonment. Westminster Magistrates Court heard the disturbing details of how the disgraced journalist had engaged in highly inappropriate communication with Alex Williams, a convicted paedophile. The court was told that Edwards had transferred £1,500 to Williams after receiving 41 indecent images of children via the popular messaging application WhatsApp. In a particularly chilling revelation, it emerged that when asked if he desired naughty pics and vids of someone described as young, Edwards had responded with the encouraging phrase, "Go on." The prosecution detailed that the majority of the illicit images viewed by Edwards depicted children between the ages of 13 and 15. However, in a shocking escalation, one video sent to the former BBC star featured the abuse of a child estimated to be between just 7 and 9 years old. Despite the severity of these offences, Chief Magistrate Paul Goldspring opted for a suspended sentence. Edwards was given a 6-month jail term suspended for 2 years, meaning he will avoid immediate imprisonment unless he reoffends during this period. Additionally, he was ordered to complete 25 rehabilitation sessions and participate in a sex offender treatment program for 40 days. The court also imposed a fine of just £3,000 in prosecution costs and mandated that Edwards be placed on the sex offenders register for a duration of 7 years. The sentencing has provoked a strong reaction from various sectors of society, with many expressing disbelief and anger at what they perceive as undue leniency. Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, expressed his shock and dismay at the case, stating he was appalled by Edwards' crimes. However, he refrained from commenting directly on the sentence, noting that it is a matter for the courts to decide. The BBC, Edwards' long-time employer, issued a statement distancing itself from its former star presenter. A spokesperson for the corporation said, "We are appalled by his crimes. He has betrayed not just the BBC, but audiences who put their trust in him. This sentiment echoes the feeling of betrayal experienced by many who had welcomed Edwards into their homes through their television screens for decades." Miriam Cates, a former Conservative MP and vocal online campaigner, suggested that the verdict exemplified a troubling 2-tier system operating within the courts. She argued, as we have seen in recent weeks, courts are not afraid in principle to issue custodial sentences for online crimes, but the creation of sharing of child sex abuse material is still seen to often be a victimless crime. Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, didn't mince his words in his criticism of the verdict. Speaking to The Telegraph, he stated, "This is not a good look for our criminal justice system when we have recently seen offenders get custodial sentences for unpleasant things said on social media. It's no wonder the public have lost faith in our institutions. Something doesn't feel right." Adding his voice to the chorus of disapproval, Brendan Clark Smith, who previously served as children's minister, emphasised the potential ramifications of such a high-profile case, resulting in a non-custodial sentence. He expressed concern that it sends out completely the wrong message to other offenders and suggested that a review of sentencing guidelines might be necessary. The Edwards case has invariably drawn comparisons with the recent instances where individuals have received custodial sentences for offences related to social media posts. The juxtaposition has fueled the argument, but there exists an imbalance in how different types of offences are treated by the justice system. One such example of this case is Lee Dunn, a 51-year-old man who was sentenced to 8 weeks in prison in August for the offence of sending a grossly offensive message. Dunn had pleaded guilty to posting offensive images about Muslims on Facebook, despite promptly deleting them and issuing an apology when he realised his mistake. Another case that has been brought into the spotlight is that of Julie Sweeney, who received a 15-month custodial sentence for writing a Facebook post calling for mosques to be blown up. Her husband, David Sweeney, expressed his outrage at the Edwards verdict, describing it as appalling and calling for a comprehensive overhaul of the justice system. Toby Young, director of the Free Speech Union, highlighted this perceived inconsistency, stating last month a man was jailed for reposting 3 offensive images about Muslims on Facebook, even though he deleted them shortly afterwards and apologised. Yet Hugh Edwards, who pleaded guilty to 3 counts of making indecent images of children, has been given a suspended sentence. It is hard not to conclude we have a 2-tier criminal justice system in which Islamophobia is punished more severely than paedophilia. Child protection advocates have expressed particular concern about the message this sends regarding the seriousness of offences involving the exploitation of minors. Susie Hargreaves, an online safety consultant and former chief executive of the Internet Watch Foundation, which is dedicated to removing child abuse images from the internet, voiced her disappointment with the verdict. She emphasised that accessing indecent images of children is far from a victimless crime, stating, as someone who has seen lots of Category A images and seen the devastating impact on those children which they carry their whole lives, I think you need to send out a stronger message than this. Hargreaves acknowledged the complexity of cases involving mental health issues, but maintained that the sentencing risked sending mixed messages to potential offenders. She warned that it could imply that mitigating personal circumstances might lead to more lenient sentences, even for serious offences against children. During the sentencing hearing, Edwards' defence team presented several mitigating factors for consideration. Philip Evans, KC, representing Edwards, conveyed that his client was profoundly sorry for betraying the priceless trust of viewers and recognised the repugnant nature of such images. The court heard how Edwards had sought to explain his behaviour to psychiatrists by referencing a difficult relationship with his monstrous father and struggles with low self-esteem. These issues were reportedly exacerbated by his perceived academic shortcomings, specifically his failure to secure a place at Oxford University, resulting in his attendance at Cardiff University instead. Chief Magistrate Paul Goldspring, in his sentencing remarks, acknowledged these factors but emphasised the gravity of Edwards' actions. He told the former newsreader, "It is not an exaggeration to say your long-earned reputation is in tatters." However, the judge declined to impose a sexual harm prevention order, stating, "I am of the clear view that you do not present a risk or danger to the public at large, specifically to children, there is a realistic prospect of rehabilitation. This case has reignited discussions about the adequacy of court sentencing guidelines for offences involving child exploitation materials. Many are calling for a comprehensive review of how such crimes are punished, arguing that the current system fails to reflect the severe and lasting impact on victims. The controversy surrounding Edwards' sentence also raises questions about celebrity influence in the justice system and whether high-profile individuals receive preferential treatment. While the judge in this case explicitly stated that Edwards' public status did not influence the sentencing decision, the public perception of inequality before the law remains a significant concern. Furthermore, the case has highlighted the ongoing challenges faced by law enforcement and the judiciary in addressing online crimes, particularly those involving the exploitation of minors. As technology continues to evolve, so too must the legal framework and sentencing guidelines to ensure they adequately address the severity and complexity of these offences. The Hugh Edwards case has undoubtedly left a lasting mark on the British public consciousness, challenging perceptions of justice, celebrity and the protection of society's most vulnerable members. As the dust settles on the high-profile sentencing, it is clear that the debate it has sparked will continue for some time. The coming months are likely to see increased scrutiny of sentencing guidelines, particularly in cases involving child exploitation materials. Campaigners, politicians and members of the public will be watching closely to see if this case prompts any significant changes in how such offences are handled by the justice system. Ultimately, the Hugh Edwards case serves as a stark reminder of the complex challenges facing society in the digital age, where the lines between public and private behaviour are increasingly blurred, and where the exploitation of children remains an ever-present threat. As the nation grapples with these issues, the hope remains that this controversial verdict will catalyse meaningful change in how such crimes are perceived, prosecuted and punished. Let's not forget that he was in possession of Class A images. How they were captured is too sick to imagine, and this monster walked free. Where is the justice for the innocent children? Let that sink in.